Hi, I'm the Girly Organist, and today I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about my chamber opera creative process, Dear Genevieve. So, why a chamber opera? Now, I think I've said in earlier videos that it's influenced by um, Gwendolyn Avril Coleridge Taylor, who was the daughter of Samuel Coleridge Taylor. She did lots of firsts in the UK as a conductor. She wrote her first composition when she was 12, and she also had a pseudonym, Peter Riley, that she would sometimes produce work under. And one of the sort of things that I kept coming back to in my own practice is when I was young, I wanted to write a play and I could sort of visualize what I wanted to happen and how I wanted it to look, but I just didn't know how to do it. And, I didn't sort of come to composition until I was in my 4th year of university, which was, quite late considering how much music I'd done at that point. So today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about why a chamber opera and what I love about the chamber opera as a sort of a form. So I think the first thing to know is it is a contemporary chamber opera. Now I really enjoy opera. Like when I went to boarding school for a few years and we could go into the library and borrow CDs, always like Blockbuster. It wasn't like Blockbuster at all because it was very like the part of the Humphrey Cheatham's library, but they had a library, just a normal library, too, that we could go in and we could borrow like these operas on DVD. And so I would borrow a different one like almost every week, every 2 weeks, and I would watch it in my room when I was doing my homework. And and I really enjoyed doing that in my sort of 16 to 18, 15, 16 to 18, 19. I kind of did that, and that was like my thing that I like to do. The first opera I went to see myself was The Marriage of Figaro, and I went because I was a member of MISO. I don't know if it's still in existence, Manchester Youth String Orchestra, and I was 10. I'd like just started, and we were going to play at the Lowry in Salford on the Quays, and we were playing before the opera in when people were getting their tickets and a drink and that in the foyer lobby area. And then the sort of reward for doing that was we'd get tickets, and we sat right at the back row, and I was just like transfixed the whole time watching this opera. And so I kind of, from being about literally 10 years old, that was my first experience of a full opera, and I just fell in love with it. And like as I've got older, like I've been to Italy to watch them, always going to Manchester to watch them, and yeah, just have them on at home. I just really like opera. I like the stories, I like the form. So I kind of, when it came to wanting a new creative challenge and sort of developing my own practice as a composer, I thought I wrote my first chamber opera 3 years ago, which was Adelaide Watts' The Unwanted Burden. And I really enjoyed that process. The main challenge that I found was writing the story. And so this time I was like, story, I'm going to work with a writer, get some guidance, but also do a load of interviews, and collect stories that I can then use, because that is kind of where the depth comes from, because it's based on people's lived experience and their real life, which I think is really cool. So I decided then I wanted to do a sort of chamber opera because they're a little bit shorter, 15-20 minutes, and it's just a really fun medium to work in. And I think there's something about I think I like that operas are a combination of lots of small pieces, because it's like it's easier for me to write lots of small little pieces that link together than it is to like just write one huge work. And some people would maybe disagree and think it's easier to write a huge work, but I like to I think there's just a really practical thing about deadlines as well, and working in a way that you can kind of really quantify what you're doing, and 9 till 5 it kind of thing. And if you've got like lots of individual parts to work on, then you can do that. So so the opera that I have written has an overture, which is a new thing for me. I hadn't done an overture, and the overture is actually obviously in the performance, but it's also what the art film covers. So the soundtrack to the art film is the overture. And then it has all of these sort of movements which are sort of split up between the organ. So there's 4 organ sections. And then in between that, there are the different letters, which are Gwendolyn writing imaginary. She didn't actually write these letters. I don't know if she wrote any letters to anyone. But my character Gwendolyn, which is based off a real person, writes these letters to her friend Genevieve. So the sort of top and tail is Dear Genevieve. Then you've got your song in between story, Love Gwendolyn. And she writes this series of letters about in-between spaces and finding home in those in-between spaces and not fitting into one thing or the other thing and not wanting to be labelled as one thing or another thing, and sort of the creative impact that has on her. And so, yes, that's why I did a chamber opera, because I just love it. I just think it's great. I just love it. Yeah, that's the truth. I just love it.